Welcome to Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. Coming up on the programme this week.
Feeling better and getting help and support is not one size fits all. It's unique to you. Just give yourself that chance to have a look at what's out there and find what's right for you, because I can guarantee you'll find something that will help you.
I think there's still very much a sense that if you go, right, maybe this will be the year that I'll actually sort where my head's at, or maybe I will go and speak to somebody about that long-standing grief issue that I've been living with. I think there's still a perception that that will be a solitary journey, that will be a lone journey that you'll have to venture on your own.
It's amazing that people are looking for that help and support. But then on the other hand, it makes me scared of how many people are looking for help and support who feel in that place where they need help. And that is only a fraction of probably the true picture out there.
And I'll be reminding you how you can make connections with mental health organisations within your community. It's Mental Health Monday.
Yeah, we are the home of the UK's conversation around mental health. It's Mental Health Monday. I do hope you're well. Happy New Year as we head into 2022. We're going to spend a little bit of time on this week's episode talking about the period that we just had, the year just gone, and of course the year to come, because often people use phrases like new year, new you, but how realistic are they really? What's the point in suddenly giving up everything in terms of the food and the drink that you've been enjoying over Christmas when your house is still absolutely full of it, for starters? And of course, if you've got a commitment to be out and about exercising, it would be so much easier to do it if the nights were a little bit lighter. It's a tough old time of year. Plus, it's freezing most of the time as well. He was here for our Christmas show. He's back for New Year. CEO of Chasing the Stigma, Jake Mills, founder of the Hub of Hope. Jake, great to see you once again. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. New Year, saying me.
Yeah. I think sometimes when people are down on their circumstances and so on and so forth, there's a change in those circumstances. I always get a sense won't come from just the calendar changing. And I think sort of building our emotional intelligence to sort of recognize how we can make changes in our lives and see a new year as a new opportunity in a way that's sort of achievable and realistic is a skill I think that we could all benefit from. Because I think at the moment, it's a little bit like it's January, so I'll join a gym, or I've eaten a lot, so now I'll stop eating a lot and I'll try and lose a little bit, or I've drunk a lot and now I'll stop. Like they're almost quite formulaic, aren't they, in terms of how we change ourselves. But we often don't change ourselves to think, you know what, that thing I've been meaning to do, that hobby I've been meaning to pick up, that skill I was looking to develop, or that course I was looking to sign up on, I'll do that now, because the courses all start in September, or the hobbies involve being outdoors and it's too dark. We place a lot on January as this changing time, but actually look out the window. Naturally and in nature, not a lot changes in January. It beds in, it waits for things to get warmer, it waits for things to get lighter, and allows us to move on that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive excuse that you've just give yourself for not not running. But you know what? Like, on one hand, I'm absolutely for people seeing a marker and thinking, okay, this is the turning point, and I'm going to do that. But at the point that you're making, I don't think was ever as valid as going in from 2020 to 21. And I think we were like, thank God 2020 is finished. Yes, that is done now. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. And then suddenly it just rolled on. And that was a bit of I think a surprise to a lot of people. I thought we left COVID in 2020 and that it wouldn't cross over. But yeah, you know, it's about whether there's putting added pressure on yourself. I said absolutely for people finding a starting point and saying, okay, this is the point when I change, and this is the point when I commit or whatever. But again, it's putting that pressure on yourself, and it doesn't have to be the 1st of January. It can be the 7th of January after you've finished all the cheese. That's fine. Or it can be February, March, April. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't have to go into a new year and say, right, I now have to change. It's got any change, whether that is, you know, getting more fit, or whether it's taking something on, or it's a commitment or anything else, has to be at the right time for you. And if we fall into a trap of saying this certain date is the right time for everybody, then that's how we fail, and we feel worse about ourselves, because you might not be ready for it. So it's always about just, I don't know, for me, I like New Year or I like the time between Christmas and New Year as a way of being able to say, what do I want to do? Like we've stopped now for a little bit. We've had a little bit of time. We've had a little bit of time to reflect. We're not kind of getting bogged down in our day to day. What do I want to do? But it's not necessarily what do I want to do from the 1st of January. It's like, just what do I want to be able to achieve this year? And then you can, if you want to use January, it can be a way of finding a plan and the steps to do that, to be ready to do it. So, yeah, I don't necessarily, from me personally, like to go in 1st of January and say, this is what I'm going to do. But as in starting on the 1st, but I do like to think, what do I want to achieve this year?
I think as well, and it's interesting, you touched on that period of time. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about sort of what that Christmas period can be like. We don't often have times like the time we've just had where you can kind of do nothing, where you almost get a chance to assess, to think and reflect on what you might want to do. And I wonder whether or not, and I'll ask you this as a question, do you think if we actually did that more often ourselves, like in other times of the year, like that we had, people can find this in like meditation and things like that, a sense of personal reflection about where you're at, what you're doing, how you perceive yourself, where you want to go. That actually, the only time we give ourselves for that is probably that time between Christmas and New Year. And actually, if we actually gave ourselves that time once a week, once a month, whatever it was, we'd be more minded to actually be able to make those changes a little bit more naturally than rather than thinking, right, oh, now I've got time to think about it. Now I'll make the change.
Yeah, as a charity, and like a lot of businesses, we have days throughout the year when we all come together. We have an away day, and we come together, trustees, staff, volunteers, and we talk about the plans for the charity and what we're doing and what we want to stop doing, what we want to start doing, how we can improve it, and what's our targets, what's our aims, what's our focus on. And we do that as a business and we do that as a charity because you think that's what we have to do. But we never do that for ourselves. So we never, as individuals, give ourselves a chance and a break. And we talk about it in the Christmas episode about maybe when you go on a holiday, maybe you can do stuff like that. But we don't, as people, generally give ourselves a chance to go, do you know what, I'm going to have a personal away day. And I'm just going to think about what am I doing? What am I doing in my day-to-day life that I don't need to be doing, that I'm wasting a lot of time and effort and energy on, that I don't get any value back, or it's unnecessary. What do I want to start doing? How can I put a plan in place to be able to start the things that I want to do? What makes me happy? What's helped me? And if you've done that, even if you've done that twice a year, 4 times a year or something, you just give yourself those days to say, oh, what, right, is New Year, new me, actually. I'm going to start doing this myself.
Don't make a commitment now. You can do it in March if you want.
But give yourselves those days to go, right, do you know what? I know like before Chris, a couple of weeks ago, I think you had some time off and you went walking and stuff. No, in that time, you could be thinking of those type of things. What do I want to do? And how do I do it? And it doesn't have to be big, grand ideas of, this new venture that you're going to start or anything like that. It can just be small things of, that's taking so much time and energy and effort and I'm getting nothing from it. I'm going to learn to try and drop doing that. There's different things. We don't give ourselves a chance to do it or credit, really. And I think we should be giving ourselves more time, because again, if you start only doing that once a year, suddenly you're under pressure. I've got to do it in this time.
I think as well, I think I'm right in saying it's hard to make life-changing decisions because of the circumstances you find yourselves in. And that can be for 1,000,001 different things. But if you go, right, I'm going to get a new job, you'll start then looking like every day for the month of January. But then your dream job, what are the chances that your dream job will appear in that period of time? That dream job might only exist in September. And then at that point, you realize you've not got a qualification that you needed for it. And I think, it's the same with, people who are in unhealthy relationships, maybe, who are thinking, maybe this is the year that I go on. But it's hard sometimes if you've got, maybe family commitments, the roof over your head, the bills, the house, and all that? How do you walk away from, a relationship you don't want to be in anymore? How do you start doing some, like, you want to start going to the gym, but you've got fees to pay and you haven't got the money for that. So how do you start doing those sorts of things? And that, I think people aren't trapped necessarily in the lives in which we live, but actually there's often a lack of flexibility around people's lives that allow you to make big changes. And I wonder whether those changes have almost got to come from the ground level, those small changes that then allow you to be more of the sort of person who's able to make other decisions, or actually somebody who then has the confidence to then make a bigger decision, and then take an ultimate step to move abroad, or to get married, or whatever it would be. And it can be hard to make changes, can't it? Because sometimes the easiest thing to do is do nothing.
I again, like what we were saying with the whole new year, new me, it's starting on the 1st of January. For some people, making a significant decision, like to leave a job that you're not happy in, or leave a relationship, might be best just to do it. Almost ripping that plaster off. And it might do. For a lot of people, though, it's something that takes planning, especially something like, I don't know, a relationship or a job, when there's a lot of different factors in there. There's a lot of things to consider. And I think what often happens is somebody will say, I need to leave a job. I'm not happy in my job and I need to leave. And I start looking for a week or 2 weeks, and then I just get lost. And then it's been 6 months and I'm still in the job and I'm still unhappy. And I don't even know how I got there. And it's exactly what you were saying. It's those smaller steps. It's plan. It's putting almost like an implementation plan in place to say, right, here's the little steps I need to start doing. If it's like you're worried about, if it's a job or a relationship, for example, and you look at the things that you're worried about in doing that, then you can start putting things in place. For example, if it was saving money for 6 months or for 4 months, and you think, by 4 months, this is what I need to do. I need to start looking at this. If I need to get qualifications, if I need to get some training or experience, I can try and put those in place there. And it's just having a plan. Now, they're just two quite generic examples, but it's giving yourself it's being kind enough to yourself and fair enough to yourself to say, I need to have a run at this. I can't just do it. I need to give myself time and credit to be able to build up to it. And as I said, be kind to myself, that if it's January the 1st and I haven't got a job by January the 31st, 30 days has September, April, June, 31st, then that's okay. Because that's only like stage one, is coming to terms with, yes, I'm going to leave the job, I'm going to do this. Step 2 is then maybe putting some things in place. Step 3 might be something else. Step 4 might be actually getting a job, actually leaving a relationship, actually doing whatever it is that you're trying to do. But things take time. Things will take time. And I think sometimes we can just get lost in it needs to happen right now. If it doesn't happen right now, it's never going to happen.
I think that's the thing as well. And I think I may have mentioned this on the podcast before. I think it was Miranda Sawyer. Is she the author or the writer? She'd written a book and she was talking about that people have a view of life as being like almost like a graph. So like you'd have your working life and then retirement, and then you'd drop, like you falls off a cliff, or like you'd be unhappy, but then you'd meet someone and you'd be really happy and you get married. And like then you'd stay really, like you imagine that journey, there's a perception of what that would look like, a line on the graph. And in reality, that line doesn't exist at all. But I think that line can dictate how you think you're supposed to feel, or what you think. Whereas in reality, it's a bit up and it's a bit down. And then actually, then the X and the Y axis completely change, because the reasons why you're making all of those decisions have changed. And first it was about your emotional well-being, then it was about money, then it was about family. So everything's an up and a down. But what you want, I guess, from what you've said there is a vision of what your contentment might be, or how you can sustain the contentment you've already found in a way which will work for you, not just now, but in 3 years' time or in 5 years' time. And it's sometimes hard to view that, because there's not a pathway that's put in front of you with, a life guide that goes, oh yeah, these things are all in place. You've almost got to map it out for yourself. But if you don't give yourself that time, if you don't give yourself that focus and plan what those steps actually look like, and whether those steps are going to go up and down, and if it's going to get more difficult for a bit, are you then going to think, right, well, I'll give up? Or is that the point that you push on, to start an upward curve? Again, an upward curve or not, I don't know. But that can be hard. And again, it's not that sort of life resilience, that life's going to come at you no matter what. And along that journey, there's going to be things that you weren't expecting to happen that will throw all your plans off course potentially at the same time. That can be really hard as well. But that sense of life resilience, again, is something which, me and you've got kids, you'd hope to think that, well, when something does come your way, you can respond to it. But at the same time, you can be proactive. You can be proactive in the way that you want to shape the world, or you want the world to sort of shape itself around you.
Yeah, I think it's having when I say an end result, but it's not necessarily the end, but saying having a target, having an aim, it's allowing yourself to put in the legwork. You've got to put in the legwork, and that legwork can take time. Now, there's loads and loads of different examples, but just to use an example to be like a little bit clearer, is that on the 1st of January, you say, I want to be fit, I want to have a 6-pack, and I want to, be really muscly and absolute like Zac Efron type of sculptor, similar to me, right? So what we need to do is we need to say, I know I'm not going to have that body by the 31st of January. I know I'm arguably not going to have that body by the summer. But if you have a date and you say, right, okay, by next Christmas or by next January, or if you did say in the summer, you've got to put in a lot of work to get there. But when we're doing it with something like that, we can maybe see it a little bit clearer, because we can say, I know physically I can't go from this to that in a month. I can't. So you put it as a target. And if a lot of people like myself will fall off that. But you'll say, right, this is the target that I want to reach. So you put in the legwork, you put in the training, you start changing your mindset, you start trying to lean into that a little bit more. You change what you're eating, you're changing your exercise routine, you're doing all this stuff. Then there'll be times when you fall off that wagon, when it's not linear. But if you've still got that target and you know that it's going to take time to achieve it, then you give yourself that credibility and the acceptance to say it's not even like a long-term plan, but it's a short to medium-term plan that I know I've got to put in work before I can achieve that. And you can take that same type of thing, put it into any different scenario where you say, right, that's what I want to do, but I've got to put in the legwork in order to get it.
Do you think though, I've stopped using the phrase happiness. I've started using the word contentment a lot more, because I think happiness is, are you happy all the time? Like literally happy, I'm happy all this, versus I'm actually content, whereby, I'm happy. Yeah, this is good, but I'm not going around with like the big cheesy grin on my face. That would be, I think that would be quite strange if I felt happy all the time.
I didn't like happy you then. That was was horrible actually.
But content me is,
yes,
that's right. Yeah, but guys, he seems very content. To me, I think that's a better adjective to be associated, like content. But I think as well, that thing of, if it's, what I would say about something like, if you set like those targets, you've got to bear in mind as well, what is it about that target that you hope to emotionally engage with? When people say like, I want to earn £1 million, right? So when you get to £1 million, are you going to be happy then?
Oh.
Because I don't know anyone who's got £1 million necessarily, but when they get £1 million, nobody went, yep, that's me done. Thank you. Got me £1 million now. Thank you. Close down the bank account and go and, withdraw the cash and buy. It doesn't happen, do they? They go, oh, hang on a minute. Well, what are those people with £2 million? Where did they get that money from? And it's a little bit like the idea of, I'm going to get super fit, or I'm going to get fit. Well, that in and of itself is not a marker, is it? You can get fitter, but like there's not necessarily things that are set in stone that they go, great, you ran a marathon,
fit now.
But like that fit tick, but then but has that made you content, or is actually, is that like the full stops? Then you just then you stop, or actually is that something then you can build it? So it's the same with like a body, because you'll always then look at the next person in the gym and go, oh well, I thought I was fit, but now I want to look like him, and then it becomes a sort of like an arms race of targets and goals, whereas actually associated not just the target, but also associating with it the emotional attribution that you want to place on it. I think that's important too, isn't it? Otherwise, you get to the £1 million and you suddenly go, I thought I'd be happy because I had that sort of to find that contentment in the long run. There's got to be an emotional attachment that comes with those targets.
And it's got to be, you've got to be realistic that targets will change and they will move. And you might say, I want to leave this job and I want to get this other job. And you get that other job and you think, actually, I don't want to do this now. And so, things will always change in life, circumstances, health will always change, and it will always go up and down. And that's why those targets often, you might have a long-term target, but once you achieve that long-term target, then there'll probably be another one and another one and another one. And that's why it's really important to be not necessarily just only thinking about those long terms, looking at those small steps. It's looking at those small achievements. It's looking at that every day. What are you achieving every day? How can you make every day a bit better for yourself? How can you achieve different things and be proud of the achievements that you have every day or every week, looking back at what you do. And it's the same with health as well, is that, you need to be making sure that you're giving yourself the best chance of being content and being healthy. From a physical health point of view, we do that. You would like to think, or we're certainly aware of it, is that I can look after myself, I can do these things, and I can give myself a chance to feel better. And those targets I'm talking about as well, from a mental health point of view, specifically those who are feeling unwell, is that you can take small steps. You can take small steps every single day, and you can build it up, and you can have put in that legwork. Not necessarily that a person needs to try in order to be healthy, but that can be through medication, it can be through therapy, it can be through other things, in order to start building that up and feeling better. Recovery and everything else can take a little bit of time, and it's giving yourself the chance to take that time.
I think so. And actually, this brings us on to the work you do through the Hub of Hope, this database of these great services that, if you're right, we're going to go, right, it's going to be like £1 million year for us, or it's going to be a 6-pack year, or it's going to be a marathon year. The first thing you do, you'd go and get the personal trainer, you get, the dietitian, you'd get the bank manager, you'd get the accountant, and you do all of those things, wouldn't you? Whereas actually for our mental health, I think there's still very much a sense that if you go, right, maybe this will be the year that I'll actually sort where my head's at, or maybe I will go and speak to somebody about that long-standing grief issue that I've been living with, social anxiety that I've been suffering from, depression, or an eating disorder. I think there's still a perception that will be a solitary journey, that will be a lone journey, that you'll have to venture on your own. And I think that's one of the things that very much comes from the Hub of Hope. There is the equivalent of the dietitian and the bank manager, all those people around you that can exist, and actually sometimes stepping away from not necessarily a comfort zone if you're not happy, but from the same group of people or the same group of friends, family, whoever you're talking with, and actually speaking to different people who might offer you a different perspective through a support network or whatever, a social prescription service, or a talking therapy service, or just your GP. That actually those should be seen as one and the same thing. Do you want to make changes? So you surrounded yourself with the people who can help you make that change. And again, I think from a mental health point of view, we're probably not there at the moment.
Oh, I think we're far from there, but it's the approach that we should have, is that, if in any field in life, we go to the expert for advice and for guidance and for help. And that is, as I said, for anything, whether that's a GP or say a consultant in a hospital who are seen as the experts in their field, would go to them for advice. If it was a mechanic, if it was anything else, you'd say, I don't know. I know what I want, or I know this needs to be better. So I'm going to go to an expert and ask for that help, and ask for that advice, and ask for that support. when it comes to our mental health, absolutely I agree with you that we say, well, I'll just sort it myself. Part of that is because we think, well, nobody knows I can't show anybody what's inside my head. And I might not even be able to describe what's inside my head. So I'll just try and sort it myself. But we're putting ourselves at a massive disadvantage by not seeking the experts, by not seeking the support. And those experts as well might not necessarily be a therapist. Those experts may be experts by experience, people who are just your peers who've been there and come through it and share those experiences. But nobody should ever have to try and deal with something that they've got no idea how to deal with on their own. Because there are a lot of people out there who have the knowledge, who have the experience, and are so willing to help, that you need to give yourself the best chance. And the best chance is by asking for help.
I'm going to move on to something which I'm sure will be written a lot and said a lot this year as people sort of open up a little bit more about mental health. But there's a point I wanted to raise with you, because your own personal experience of your own mental health journey. There's this phrase, and it makes absolute sense when you see it within a certain context of it's okay to not be okay, which is this acceptance that you don't have to feel great all the time, and there's an understanding to it. That's fine. But then I place myself like from the point of view from somebody who is not okay, and they're reading that, oh no, it's fine to feel like this. It's okay to feel like this. It's fine to feel like that. And I'm thinking, all right, oh, it's fine then, right? I won't do anything. Like, I shouldn't be worried about it. But I always think it should go, it's okay to not feel okay. So here is, but like there needs to be something else after that point. So you don't just go, no, it's fine to not be okay all the time. There has to be something there that then takes people to a different place so that they can learn about finding the way to be okay. Like, we shouldn't have to just accept that not okay is okay. It has to then come with a step, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's something that we see it a lot. And I have to say, the sentiment is absolutely spot on. I know why people are saying that is that, but actually I suppose the phrase should be, it's completely normal to not feel okay sometimes. That's basically what the sentiment is that is normal. That's a normal thing. But ultimately, it's not okay not to feel okay, because we don't want anybody not to feel okay. So absolutely agree with you. It's okay to not be okay. But if you are not okay, get help, get support so that you are okay. I feel like we've said okay quite a lot there.
Yeah.
But
which actually, is there any magazines that are listening to this and want to sponsor the show, this edition, then that's an opportunity for you.
If we're doing a dissertation, our word count would be very high right now. But it is as I said, the sentiment is there, which is that it's completely normal to not feel okay sometimes. However, if you are not feeling okay, we're not happy with that, because we want you to be okay. So if you're not feeling okay, that's normal. That's okay. Like we understand why you might do it, but you can feel better, and you should feel better, and you deserve to feel better, and we can help you feel better. Not as catchy on a little Instagram clouds thing, but
got over your word count on the Twitter as well.
Yes, but ultimately, we don't want anyone not to feel okay. And if you ever feel not okay, get help, get support, and give yourself a chance.
Our mate Clark Carlisle, he was doing a talk at Everton, actually, Everton Football Club, and he said, imagine mental health and the opportunities that we've got framed around two words. He said the difference between I can't go on living and I can't go on living like this is huge, because it senses one is absolute, one is a full stop. The other is a sense that the situation you're in is temporary and can change. I thought that was such a strong phrase. I obviously stayed with me now a few years down the line. I thought that to me really summarized that thing that sometimes when we try and that our journey, that our emotions are on a journey as we're on a journey. with them. And actually there aren't end points, and there aren't sort of, goals that we set that we then stop at. That there's a journey, and it's a journey that can change.
And I feel like there's a willingness there as well, isn't there? There's a willingness for change. That whole, like, I can't go on living like this. It's open. It's open to saying I'm almost ready to take action, or I'm willing at least to take action, so that I'm not living like this anymore. I want to be able to get better. I want to be able to get change. And one thing I've said a lot over the years is that with our physical health, we absolutely give ourselves that chance. If we feel physically unwell, we give ourselves a chance to feel better. We'll go to a doctor's, we'll try medication, we'll go to hospital if we need to, we'll go to appointments, we'll talk about it, we'll do what we need to do, what we feel we can do to feel better. With our mental health, generally, we don't give ourselves a chance to get better. And that's what we need to change. And, that's what we're seeing through the Hub of Hope, particularly over last year, is just how many people are looking for help and support. Mm. Like last year was the biggest year that we've had. We celebrated 5 years as a charity in December, and I think the first 4 years were essentially us trying to just establish ourselves. Whereas from January to December in 2021 was a year like no other for the Hub of Hope, where we had about, I think, I don't know now. I don't know if I'm gonna say the figure exactly right, but I'm gonna say it anyway. But we had just over 1 million page views on the Hub of Hope. 1 million page views, with well over 100,000 users. We got 100,000 users just from NHS UK, where people went to NHS UK looking for help and support and ended up looking for the voluntary sector, looking at the Hub of Hope. We went from having an average of around 7,000 users a month to around 7,000 to 9,000 users a week. This is people. These are individual people looking for help and support. And so it fills me with, it's mixed feelings, really. Because on one hand, I think, it's amazing that people are looking for that help and support. It's amazing that people are using the resource and that it's valuable to people. But then on the other hand, it makes me scared of how many people are looking for help and support, who feel in that place where they need help. And that is only a fraction of probably the true picture out there.
I think it's those are incredible numbers, by the way, Jake. And I think everyone who's been following your story will feel like a sense of like almost pride in what you've been able to achieve with that. And actually, we've gone through this sort of journey, Mental Health Monday, just reaching its 5th birthday actually this month. 5 years of sort of covering these stories. And I think at any one point, if we'd have stopped after a year and a half, if you'd have stopped after a year or so of sharing your story, people would have gone, oh yeah, he's a good guy, Jake. Or that podcast, yeah, that was good while it lasted. But since that actually you are there as a result of the work that's gone before you. You're standing on the shoulders of giants, even if you're standing on the shoulders of your own work, if you like. That as we move out in this field of mental health, it will only open up, I think, more people to talk about it. And I think it is a very inclusive conversation, but it's still very much, it's in an exclusive kind of way. And I think we're the sort of minded the same way to think that actually, although the conversation about mental health has moved on a lot, I think it's like now like 20% of where it needs to be. Like even though we've got all these big things that happen on TV, and your big show will mention it, once every 6 months or whatever it is, and there'll be sort of good portrayals through soap operas, and mental health first aid now really starting to appear in workplaces and schools and things like that. I think those much wider conversations of keep it to yourself, man up, stiff upper lip, and all those things, I think they are still very much the pervading culture that we have within society. And I think those people who are learning about it are finding these services like Hub of Hope, and they're suddenly going, oh, actually, this thing is actually really useful. And I bet people say to you all the time, I wish I'd have known about this earlier. Like, and that to me is one of those phrases. Somebody said that to me once about one of the podcasts, because they said, oh, if we'd have known about this earlier, I think we could have had a slightly different outcome with one of their relatives. And I found that to be a thing that made me think, but pride that it was something that they found to be a positive thing, but also that we hadn't done enough sooner, or it wasn't enough, or that, it could have been more, or I could have done. And you can't know those things, can you? And you can't, beat yourself up about it. But we are standing on the shoulders of everything we've done before, and it's why it's important that this conversation continues, that people are open to the conversation, and that people can join in the conversation in an accessible way.
I think we've come a long way. We, as a society, we've come a long way. We really have. And even if you look back at when you started Mental Health Mondays, and back when we started all of this with the Hub of Hope and Chasing Stigma, and we've come a long way, a really long way as a society. But I agree, probably with the 20%, there's a long way to go. I think a lot of this is generational, which comes in with its own problems, particularly in a workplace when you have that older generation maybe who are management, who are executives. I'm not tarring with a brush here. I just think generationally, the conversation wasn't there, and that's where a lot of problems can stem from. Whereas the younger generation now, I have a lot of hope in them coming through and having this better understanding. However, when we do have the conversations with workplaces, it is like, it's almost embraced that somebody can say it. And it's almost like, I'd say majority of the work that we do by going into a business through training or talks or anything else, workshops, it's almost giving people permission. It's almost giving someone permission to say, you can feel this way, you can have this conversation, you can ask these questions. And people are quite thankful and grateful for somebody giving them permission.
I think so.
And that's the shift that we need.
If I was to, are you ready for this, for an analogy? If the mental health conversation is like the internet, we're still in the dial-up years. Like, we've suddenly got this thing, and people are realizing you can be. I think some people have somehow got that. Some people have got like super fast broadband, but other people are still getting an AOL CD-ROM through the post. Yeah, I think we kind of. And some people are going, oh, I don't think I'll be using the internet at any point. But then things are happening where they're going, well, you'll need an email address. And they go, oh, maybe I'll have a look at it. Maybe I'll take a look. I feel like we're at that sort of point where at some point we'll all go super fast fiber. I think we'll be there. But at the moment, there's a few still on the old dial-up in the AOL.
Yeah, I think between that and my gym analogy before, I think we're on absolute fire, aren't we? But you're right. Yeah, I think there's definitely an appetite, and there's definitely a willingness. I think that's the biggest difference I've noticed over the last 5 years, is a willingness. A willingness to learn, a willingness to listen, and a willingness to change. And what it's about is taking that willingness and putting it into actual practice, and making it part of an everyday practice and an everyday part of a workplace or anything else in our society. And if we can provide some of those tools, then absolutely that's what we want to do. We want to work with as many people as we can. And as I say, you look back at last year, and that's what's been happening, working with Network Rail, working with NCP car parks, working with Hawthorne's Brewery, working with NHS, working with Trust, working with a lot of other providers. And you're going to see that even more now this year, is who we can work with. But I'd say, looking back at the last 5 years, is that willingness. But actually looking back at the last year and going through, or the last 2 years, actually going through a pandemic, there's been a lot of willingness from peers as well, finding new ways of working with others, and trying just to work together collaboratively to find the best way through. And I think there has been a shift in that.
Good. And long may that continue as well through 2022 and beyond. Jake, for people who are maybe thinking, yeah, this is the sort of conversation that's reminding me I maybe need to speak to somebody. The Hub of Hope is a service, both an app, but also a website that people can go on, download, either using the location on your device or by typing in your postcode. It finds mental health services that are close to you. It's a brilliant resource from one which is obviously now very much widely used. What would you say to anyone listening to that who's apprehensive about taking that first step towards looking into what sort of services might be out there for them?
I'd say have a look, just have a look, because I bet you, I'm willing to bet my bottom dollar, you'll find support you didn't even know was there. And it's not a one size fits all approach. So that's why we've built it to be as inclusive as it can be to all the different types of support. Recovery and feeling better and getting help and support is not one size fits all. It's unique to you. So have a little look. Like if you go on the Hub of Hope and just look, nobody's going to get in touch with you. Nobody's going to even know that you're having a look at any support. Just give yourself that chance to have a look at what's out there and find what's right for you, because I can guarantee you'll find something that will help you.
Jake Mills, always a pleasure. Congratulations on those numbers, which we'll take at face value, but do email me back if you realize you've got them completely wrong.
No, it'll be more, if anything. I undercut it a little bit.
That's good. See, that's another thing. New year, new you. Stop downplaying your achievements.
Yeah.
Add a couple of zeros.
Yeah, I just don't want to be the other way.
That's fine. I did go to an event, by the way, and somebody stood up on stage and went, "Hi, I met this organisation. It was Dramatic Recovery, the drama social prescription service in Liverpool." She went, "I met this group after I found them on the Hub of Hope." And my heart did a little skip, because I thought, that's brilliant, because for all the people, including myself, who constantly bang on about the Hub of Hope, people are finding it and people are using it. I thought that was great. And then somebody said, for people who don't know, Hub of Hope, it's like, think of it, it's like Tinder, but for mental health. And I thought, yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
not quite our strap line, but we'll go with it.
I think that's an option. There's an opportunity, a branding opportunity for you there. Jake Mills, absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time. Happy New Year, and thanks for joining us for this week's edition of Mental Health Monday.
Thank you very much.
I hope you've enjoyed this week's podcast. Thanks for checking out Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Mick Coyle. You can also find me, Mick Coyle, on Facebook as well. Don't forget, if you want to speak to somebody about your mental health, you can do so. The Samaritans, free to call on 116 123. You can find mental health services where you are. Just look for the Hub of Hope. Type in your postcode. It'll find those mental health services close to you. And for support in a crisis, you can text SHOUT to 85258. That's if you're experiencing a personal crisis, you're unable to cope and need support. Shout to 85258. That's a text line. Do get involved in those services. In an absolute emergency, always remember the number to call is 999. Thanks for downloading the podcast this week. We'll be back next week with more Mental Health Monday.